G'day, hi, and welcome. I know. You think, wow, I'm looking at a real pretty face here. I'm looking at a really handsome guy. Okay, the question today is how, if you have a sport bike, how do you adjust a chain without racing stands? Well, again, I know you think you're just looking at a pretty face, but no, there's a little bit of a pea in there with a little hamster. He spins around. He doesn't work too much, but when he works good. So all I got to do is really get the tire off the ground about an inch or so. Not the best setup, but what I got is my side stand is down. Okay, so that's a normal one, and then go real easy when you jack it, just a regular jack, and I'm jacking it up from the shock/engine mount, so be very careful with that. And I just need to get the tire enough to move it. It doesn't have to be a lot here. It might go up maybe about a little bit more once I find the tight spot or whatever and loosen off the nut. But the thing is the bike is safe this way. It's the other setup I was going to do was a little more dangerous because I don't have proper jack stands. I don't have the money to buy jack stands right now. New a set of stands for this front and back. You're looking at about $450. Used, I found just a back rear stand for $70. Whether it would fit this bike or not, I don't know. Some of them are universals, some of them are not. And then I found a set of stands for $100, which if I can come up with $100, if they fit this bike, I might buy them because it would make life a lot easier. But I have to work with what I got. Now the downside is the bike's a bit cantered. Cantered. That is a word. It is a word, I'm sure. But it'll do the job. So I'm going to basically do my chain adjustment. I've got 8,000 kilometers on this bike since I bought it. From last year to this year, and I've yet to do a chain adjustment. So even though it was a new chain, I think I'm starting to notice the loose chain symptoms that you get. My biggest challenge today is not getting eaten by the horseflies, the deer flies. Of course, the wind would completely stop as soon as I start wanting to adjust my chain. So as I do it step by step, I'll show you in another video. But just so if guys are wondering how to do it, but just be very careful where you jack it up from. Go slow. The bike will slide around, so make sure your stand isn't digging into the ground. Make sure there's not so much weight on the stand that you bend your stand, because that could be really bad. That's a pretty strong stand. I have a steel stand. I don't know if you could get away with it with an aluminium stand. Or a carbon stand. I don't know if I'd try this, but for a steel stand, should be okay. If not, the bike will be up on the side, and the last thing I want is the bike to end up on the side. So this is just how I'm doing it. I don't recommend you do it, but if you're in a pinch and you have to adjust your chain, this may be the only way you might be able to do it without regular stands, because you can't jack the bike up with a regular hoist with the fairing on. Even if you take the fairing off, you still have the exhaust right underneath, so just be careful of your exhaust if you jack it up, that you don't squish anything or anything like that. So go gentle, whatever, but you only have to get the wheel up high enough so that you can spin the tire. Even if it's slightly touching the ground, that's fine. One thing I didn't do, but I should do, is just for giggles, block the front end. You just put a little block there. Not that it's going to move, but just take away the possibility. Just because if you're reefing on the bike, what I'll do is I'll lower the bike to crack the nut and everything like that when I do it. So I'll just show you how I do it. But yeah, now getting the front, you could also remove your back tire this way. You'd have to jack it up a little more to get the clearance. Take your back tire off. I'm not going to do it now, but at the end of the season, my tires have to come off. Why? Because I want to check my wheel bearings. Good to check that at least once a season, but I want to be riding it. Today's known as the 17th or 18th of June. I also know it as ride number 40. So my goal here is more to have, just the regular adjustments done. Everything else, I keep up on the maintenance on this bike week by week. But 5,000 miles since my last chain adjustment. I think that I probably should do it more than that. They recommend in the book, every 800 kilometers or 500 miles or whatever. But you go by, is it loose, is it not loose? But once it starts getting loose, you'll start to notice a little more vibration in the bike. You'll also start to notice a little bit more, the back feels looser on you, and you'll start to hear clunking sounds and stuff like that. And when you're riding at low speed, it gets really bunty because the chain isn't smooth. So It's not bad yet, but those symptoms are starting, so it's like I have to adjust this chain because if you wait till it gets to that, now you're going to do either where if your chain is too loose, it can jump the sprocket. If it jumps the sprocket, it'll you could bust the chain, but you'll definitely start stripping. Once you hear that first, if you'll know that sound, you'll hear it for the first time you ever hear a chain jump the sprocket while you're riding. Not necessarily jump off the sprocket, but just jump the sprocket. It's a sound that it's so distinctive that you'll hear it once, you'll know exactly what it is, even if you've never heard it before. But it's just like that. You'll hear that, and that's basically the chain jumping the sprocket. Which then, once it starts doing that, at that point, it's time to change your sprocket. But usually, that's when you're down to like little nubs. It's more just like a rough rotor than a sprocket at that point. But that's when you put like extreme mileage on it. I'm telling you from experience. The other thing is if your chain is too tight, your suspension can't work properly, and when you hit a hard bump, it loads up the chain and you can snap your chain. So look at your manual, see where you got to adjust it. Adjust it right. I'll get cracking on this, and so I can go for a ride today. I got my torque bar here. I got everything I need to go. Just got to get a couple of sockets and a few things set out, and then I'll show you how to adjust the chain, or at least the way I do it.